Hello and welcome to another edition of SPS Spotlight. I'm your host, Azell Cavaan, Chief Communications Officer for Springfield Public Schools. Today we are going to talk about a subject that we all know about if we go in Springfield Public Schools, but we don't often think about. And really we don't know as much as we thought we did. I'm joined by Bob Mulcahey today, and he is the administrator who's in charge of custodial services for Springfield Public Schools. So in just a moment we're going to find out all about custodians, the work that they do, and how they are truly our unsung heroes. But before we get started, I just want to take a couple of moments to thank Principal Darcia Milner over at Rebecca Johnson School for this wonderful pin. You know, April is Autism Awareness Month, and this pin was made by the developmental students and staff over at Rebecca Johnson with their own hands in recognition of Autism Awareness Month. So thank you so much for my great pin. So now, on to our buildings, their cleanliness, and those who work so hard to keep it clean. Hey, Bob.
How are we doing, Azell?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. We
Thank you
know
for
that
having
you're
me.
usually working hard behind the scenes, and your guys and ladies definitely work hard behind the scenes. So I'm glad that you're here, and we can talk a little bit about what goes into keeping our buildings clean and what our custodians really do every day. So let's start by finding out how many custodians do we have in the district?
Currently, we have position spaces for 230 custodians across the district.
So that's a lot of custodians. We have about 60 schools, so there must be some doubling up, right? So you have custodians who work different shifts?
Correct. We, with our custodial staff, we have our seniors or lead custodians, our junior Cs who will oversee some of the permits at night. We'll have our night we'll have our night custodians, junior A custodians, and we'll have part-time custodians spread across the district. Some of the smaller schools will only have 2 custodians in the building, one on the days, one on nights. A larger school like Central High School will have 11 custodians at a time.
Wow. So it's really a complex operation to keep everybody in the right places at the right times.
Absolutely.
I think there's some kind of job descriptions that we would all expect custodians to do. And I know that your office has these great cards that kind of show some of the more traditional things that they do, like cleaning the classrooms, cleaning the offices, keeping the hallways clean, the restrooms and the locker rooms. They keep the cafeteria clean, they keep the carpets clean. So these are all, I think, jobs that we would expect our, custodians to do in our schools. But when I go in schools, I know that they're doing so much more than just that. So what are some of the things that you think may go unnoticed, but our custodians are hard at work doing these things every day?
Well, part of the problem, or part of the job is building security. We make sure that the buildings are safe and secure when they're in use and when they're not in use. We also do the building inspections to make sure that all the mechanical equipment is up to
running properly.
Right, yeah, all the building equipment is working at its peak efficiency, and if there's any problems, we notify the different trades to come over and make the necessary repairs so our buildings can run smoothly and our staff and students can be comfortable.
Yep.
And
I know there's probably a lot of on-the-job learning, because I know that a lot of our schools have gotten new boilers over the years and new window systems and things like that. A lot of upgrades in our schools, and so I would imagine the custodians have to keep on top of how to maintain that.
They may do the maintenance on those items. They also do the reporting if there's any problems with them, so we can get the experts in to do the repairs if anything is needed. And in addition to that, the custodians take care of the pools.
Okay.
We also are doing the winter preps.
Well, you bring up an interesting point when you talk about the winter preps, because there were a few, we have snow days, and generally, when schools are closed, teachers don't come to work, but still administrators come to work and central office is open. When the weather is really bad, the entire district closes, and nobody who works for Springfield Public Schools reports to work except custodians.
Correct.
So they are doing what on those weather days?
Well, the custodial staff is responsible for making sure that the sidewalks around the schools and the public sidewalks around the building on school property have been cleaned and maintained So our students and our staff will be able to come to school when school reopens. So when everybody else gets to stay home, we have to try to get into work and dig the buildings out as soon as possible so we can have school the next day. This was a challenging winter. We had 2 very, very large storms.
Yes.
And it truly it gave us some challenges for getting these things done. But I have to commend my crew for getting there and getting the buildings open.
Absolutely. So they are there when schools are closed because of weather. They're also there, you mentioned, at night. So after the school closes, there are evening hours for some custodians. What are the night custodian responsibilities?
The night custodians are responsible for naturally cleaning all of the classrooms, the bathrooms, and the halls. But in addition to that, we have permitted use. Visitors coming into our building can be basketball tournaments, it can be basketball teams, Boy Scouts, various groups will come into our schools.
Right.
We're responsible to make sure that they are operating in a safe and clean environment and using our buildings properly. And then after they leave, we clean up after the permitted programs.
So our custodians interact not only with, the students and the staff during the day, the night custodians are also interacting with basically the community when the community groups come in and use the schools. And have to make sure that it's cleaned up no matter if it was a tournament, no matter what happened in that cafeteria or auditorium the night before, that it's sparkling clean for school the next day.
That's what we attempt to do every day.
Now, how do you make sure that all of the classrooms are clean the same way, or the cafeteria in one school is just as clean as the cafeteria in another, because you have different people in different schools, so how do you maintain that level?
Part of it is the job cards that we have out there, and we're actually working on standardizing the practices across the district.
Okay.
So each school may predict or may create a different challenge for us due to the age of the building. Our newer buildings have the elevators in them where an older building does not. So it does offer some different challenges for the custodians.
Right.
We're trying to come up with new equipment and new types, standards of cleaning that allows all of the custodians to work as efficiently and as quickly as possible and do the best job.
I know that I go to schools a lot, and often I have a lot of equipment with me, and the first thing I always do when I walk in is there a custodian who can help me? So I'm clearly pulling that custodian away from something that is on one of these cards or something like that. How do custodians deal with just all of the things that get thrown at them? Because there's a lot that custodians do that's not on these cards.
Well, that's always been an age-old problem for the custodial staff is what job do I take first? And one of the things that we actually did in some of our interviews for our senior custodians, the question I asked them was, how would you handle the following situation? You're going out to do crossing duty. You get a call on the walkie-talkie from your principal. You have a truck coming in the back of the building with a delivery of 100 cases of paper. And you just called that in room 3, a child has been ill. How do you handle this situation? And we look at how the custodian is able to juggle that, because that's what it is. It almost becomes a juggling act for these.
Absolutely.
And we get pulled in many different directions, sometimes all at once.
Right, I was going to say, all of those sound extremely important.
Yep.
You mentioned crossing guard duty. And often when I'm driving through the city at, school start and school end times, you do see custodians outside. I happen to know they're custodians because I'm in the building. Otherwise, you would think they're a crossing guard. So how does that work, where custodians sometimes double as the crossing guard?
Well, the school department has worked out with the custodians in their contract that if a crossing post is adjacent to the school, that crossing post is offered to the school. So currently we have over 80 custodians acting as crossing guards in addition to the custodians.
Okay.
I mean, custodial work.
Custodial work. I think that custodians just do such a great job. There's so many times when I know I personally rely on the custodian to get a building looking, spick and span because there's some guests coming, and I know principals will always say, I got a great custodian. They really appreciate the work of the custodians.
Absolutely. Our guys are the first line. We make a building run smoother. When a custodian is doing what he really should be doing, you have a principal who's happy, you have
Yes.
staff that's happy, students and parents are happy with the appearance and the appearance of the building.
It contributes to the overall
Absolutely.
health of the building, the culture and the climate of the building.
And if everybody is happier in the building, it gives a better, it makes a better learning environment for the students.
Right.
Because they come in and they're ready to learn and
That's right.
everybody's happier.
That's why we call everybody who works in the schools educators, because in some way you are impacting the education of the students just because you're in the school with a responsibility to fulfill that helps make the learning environment better for the kids.
Absolutely.
So how about you yourself? So now you are an administrator, you oversee more than 200 custodians. How long have you been at the job and when did you begin?
I began a long time ago. I've got over 35 years in as a school custodian, and yes, I started off as a part-time custodian, then went to a night position, worked as a junior C, worked my way right up the system, from a smaller elementary school up to working up at the High School of Commerce for over 15 years. Have a lot of fond memories, a lot of great people that I've worked with over there.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to be tapped by the superintendent to come down to central office in this administrative position.
Excellent. You must have seen a lot of changes. I just think about product changes or process changes over 35 years. What stands out the most for you?
Well, I think the biggest change too is more and more processes that we're having to follow, just with bloodborne pathogens. There are so many different diseases and different germs out there nowadays that can impact not only the student staff, but the custodians themselves. So we're having to be much more strict in our protocols for how we're dealing with these type of spills.
Yeah, I remember when I was in grade school, whenever a student was, you mentioned, ill in class, here the custodian would come with some cedar-like stuff and sprinkle over where the student was ill. And I imagine they do it differently now.
Yes, we still use basically the same, but absorbent. We absorb it, sweep it up, but now we end up having to disinfect the area afterwards.
Right.
So nobody is exposed to any other germs afterwards.
Excellent. And what are the qualifications for sort of entry-level position for custodial work?
Usually it is an entry-level position, so we prefer somebody with some cleaning experience. We have a summer program that get some of usually Springfield students will come in and they'll work for over the summer assisting us, and some of those custodians then will come back when school year starts again to become a part-time custodian, and they can move up the ladder. Other people do just who have gotten other experiences around the city. We look for them having previous cleaning experience.
Do you tend to have openings year-round, or is there a backlog of applicants?
Usually we have a fair amount of applicants looking for a limited number of positions.
Yeah, so it's competitive.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I am so glad that you agreed to be here with us today. I know you like to be behind the scenes, so thanks for coming out today. And, we really do appreciate our custodians, and we know that they don't often get recognized, the unsung heroes kind of a thing.
Yes, thank you very much for letting me shine a little light on the custodial positions. And thank you all to all the guys out there. It was a tough winter this year, and they really came through for us.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
And thank you all for joining us. It's another edition of SPS Spotlight. Be sure to stay tuned right here to this station for another topic coming your way very soon.